All right, we are live. Got the camera rolling. Got the hopefully the right lens. Got the mic. Hopefully it sounds crisp and you guys can hear me. What's going on? Trying to do more of these podcasts just because I'm letting you guys down. I remember at one point I was doing 3 a week right after surgery, and they weren't just me either. They were like bringing guests on. So last week I talked about why you're not seeing as many guests as you used to see on my show, just because of time management. And just to give you kind of a brief recap, since the last time you guys heard my voice, for those of you guys who do not follow my journey on Instagram, still a free agent. I'm actually in the process right now of designing some off-speed pitches. I was literally throwing all 4 seams, all 2 seams, when I would throw those first couple bullpens, because I kind of wanted to get a good understanding of what my fastball metrics were, what I mean by that is, like, I've kind of been both types of pitchers in my career, where I was like a 4-seam hard thrower, and then sometimes I was a 2-seam sinker guy, get a lot of ground balls. So I didn't really know which guy I was coming back from surgery. I was obviously super pleased my first few bullpens with the velocity, and then having the ability to throw on a Rapsodo, which I had never really gotten an opportunity to do. So I bought a unit, and then I got hurt. But knowing now what my kind of fastball metrics are, knowing that my 4-seam plays true with a lot of vertical movement, and looking at my 2-seam and seeing certain metrics that aren't really up to par, I guess, kind of gave me the understanding that, okay, 4-seam fastball, and then now it's about like blending in what's the best secondary or off-speed pitch that I could potentially throw. I was really, really hoping I would be able to grasp the concept of the 12-6 curveball, and that's kind of been a struggle for me. I've been pretty vocal about it, on Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, I would love to have a true 12-6 curveball, and it's just something that's not coming along that easily. I think I'm in the process now of kind of checking some other pitches. I've always been a guy that had a really good feel for like a slider. I don't know. I hate to say it was quote unquote easy for me to throw a slider, but very less so complicated than a curveball. So I've been kind of playing around with the slider. I'm stuck between, what would play better between like a more of a cutter variation, obviously with a harder velocity, but less movement, less depth, or if I could do, a sweeping slider thing, which to me, has always been fairly easy to kind of distinguish between the two. For me, it's just, I've talked about this in my pitch grip ebook, where it's like, cutter, I'm my thumb's kind of under the baseball, under my fingers, and then the slider, I just drop that thumb more so towards my ring finger, and I get a little bit more depth. So that's where I'm currently at. I want to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best possible position when I do, say, throw for a team or whatnot. I've sent some reports to teams and so on and so forth. And then, right now I think we're just in that process where I got to showcase more than just velocity, which is funny because, that's kind of where the game's at. But yeah, so what we're going to talk about today, we won't spend too long on the subject, but I want to hit on mental game. Okay, so there's obviously multiple avenues that we can kind of go down, or multiple rabbit holes that we can go into, but I got a lot of questions. I've been getting a lot of questions about the mental aspect of things, and it's funny. I was talking to a buddy the other day about how you would think with all of the connectivity that we have with social media and whatnot, like we would do a better job of talking about it. I know Damon Hall, I had him on the show. We did a 2-part episode. I will write that down to link that in the show notes. But we did a podcast, 2-part podcast, basically all on like the mental game. And I know he's doing a lot of great things for the industry from that aspect. And I just want to do my part because I have been a guy that has gone through the mental grind of being a pitcher. And, I have faced difficulty with like the yips and basically like the no self-confidence and all of that stuff. And I'm not sitting here saying that I came out on the other side like successful. Obviously, I'm still grinding and whatnot, but I did find a way to get past it. So I just wanted to take, 10, 15 minutes today and really dive into kind of my journey with it, some protocols that I put into place that helped me along the way. And just, kind of we'll piggyback off that and we'll see where it goes. Because, these solo episodes, man, who knows where they're heading. But, all right, so first things first, I want to thank the sponsors, Pocket Radar, Pitch Logic, Frost Gear Baseball, because I'm wearing a Frost Gear Baseball beanie right now. And for those of you who are going to watch the YouTube video of this podcast, there it is, Frost Gear Baseball. I will link all of the discount codes in the show notes. I've partnered with a ton of great baseball companies that provide fantastic products. That's always in the show notes of the episode. So show notes will be therobbyroshow.com/pitching-mental. So if you're looking for a discount on Pocket Radar, Pitch Logic, Frost Gear, go ahead and head on over to the show notes and claim your discount. I will also put in the show notes some new content that I've been making of late, which is basically just mic'd up throwing sessions. I have like a mic'd up throwing session with my family, mic'd up throwing session with one of my buddies that's home for Christmas break, and another mic'd up throwing session of like how I approach warming up indoors. So that was kind of a topic that I've gotten a lot of questions on lately is, hey, it's raining or it's snowing where I'm from. Like I'm forced to throw in an indoor facility. Can you help me out? Like, I don't know how to go about it. I didn't really give a full, in-depth explanation. It's just literally me doing like my warm-up throws indoors. So all those 3 new content pieces I will link in the show notes. And then I think that's all I got. But I guess I can also include the Pitch Logic comparison video with Rapsodo. I did a brief video comparing. Wow, has anyone ever tried to write something on a piece of paper and talk at the same time? It's really hard. So I did a brief comparison video of the Pitch Logic ball to like a Rapsodo unit. The Rapsodo data got lost in the cloud, so I was only like verbalizing the data metrics. But basically, the Pitch Logic ball was very, very, very impressive. What I tell people, just to give everyone like an understanding of the Pitch Logic ball, is it's pretty much giving you the same thing that like a Rapsodo will give you, right? I know when I've partnered with Diamond Kinetics too, and I'm not going to sit here and say anything bad about Diamond Kinetics. I love that ball, but the data metrics that the Pitch Logic ball gives you is a little bit more in depth, and you're getting vertical movement, horizontal movement, you're getting rifle spin, you're getting all of those things that like a Rapsodo will give you that the DK ball won't. But the thing that I tell people is like the Pitch Logic ball is $250. If you use my discount or whatever, you get $25 back, but you're not paying for a monthly membership. So the DK ball is $100. My discount will make it like 89 or something, but you're paying, I think, $10 or something a month for that. So I will link all of the comparison videos that I've shot just to give you guys an understanding, because look, man, like the game's heading that way, and not even heading that way. It's like, it's almost completely there, right? Like you essentially have to know your pitch metrics now if you want to, basically market yourself, right? Like that's what I'm having to do. Whereas it used to be 10 years ago, like, hey, this is my velo. And they're like, oh, okay. But now it's like, what's your horizontal move break, or what's your vertical movement, all this stuff. So that's why I love these pitch tracking balls. And I think they do a fantastic job of, like the accuracy. Obviously, the Rapsodos and Trackmans are multiple thousands of dollars for a reason, because you're probably getting, way more accurate, less, less inconsistencies, which I think the balls will give you sometimes. But that comparison video, what I did with the pitch Logic, was really impressive. Like the only thing that I say about the Pitch Logic ball is that it's always going to be about 2 to 4 miles an hour harder, because the guy told me that it's getting it right out of the fingertips, like milliseconds. So that's why it's always going to read harder. Okay, so we're going to dive into it. 10 minutes later. Sorry. All right. So I want to be clear and say that everything that I talk about here from like the mental aspect, there's no really absolutes in the sense of, you do the things that I did or you do the things that I talk about. There's no guarantees. I think a lot of my audience knows that there's no guarantees that it's going to necessarily like click and, work for you and everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows afterwards. But I do feel a sense of responsibility, like I say all the time, in basically giving you guys my experiences, giving you kind of the ins and outs of the things that I've gone through in hopes to better equip you moving forward. And I know there's a ton of guys that go through, say like the yips or just say the mental grind of just being a baseball player. And it's one of those things that kind of looks, people look down upon it in the sense of, you don't want to come out and say like, hey, I need help, or hey, I'm struggling, because we're all baseball players, which means we're all alpha males, which means that we're super stubborn, we're stupid prideful, and we don't ever really want to go to help. So with that being said, I think maybe 80% of the consultation calls that people sign up for with me are about like the mental game and about like, hey, I have the yips, or hey, I struggle with this. So I'll link my consultation service in the show notes if you're somebody that wants to dive into this concept, and we can hop on a phone call, we can go back and forth, and we just get real personal about that stuff. Because look, like, that's a huge component to being a baseball player, not even just a pitcher, but just a baseball player, in regards to the mental game. And it sucks. And I hate to see it as one of the components, because again, I went through it. I was the same guy, and I hate to see it as the thing that no one talks about, that no one is really open about. Everyone's so prideful, and they want to shy away from it. And I think there's another dynamic within this, is like, if people don't speak it into existence, if people don't talk about it, or people don't acknowledge it, then it's like it's not existent, right? So like, if you go out there in a game and you literally have no idea where the ball's going, and you just like completely lose yourself, there's a sense in you, in your brain that says like, don't acknowledge that outing, like don't talk about that outing, don't open up, because if you don't, then it didn't happen. And I think that's something that I did too. When I would go through those things, was like, I just wouldn't even want to think about it. But I think, again, as we all know, we could sit there all the live long day and say, oh, I don't want to think about this, but you're going to. It's going to eat you alive. There was nights where, when I was probably at my worst in 2013, where I was like changing my arm angle every outing. I literally just got to a point at one outing. I think it was I guess it was the last outing before I got released. This was actually 2014, sorry. Last outing before I got released, I literally like told the local newspaper article this. I said, I could have gone up there left-handed and wouldn't have known if I was left-handed or right-handed. Like, in a clearer, crisper sense, it was me saying that I basically felt like I was throwing left-handed and trying to get professional hitters out, because I was so mind-effed. Like, I was thinking so many different things. I was like worried about what other people were thinking. I was concerned about all of like the pressure that comes in professional baseball about, oh, am I going to get released? I don't want to get released, and all this stuff. And I've talked about this all the time, and I know a lot of you guys that listen to me are probably, sound like a broken record or whatever, but I think it's so true. And I just want to be someone that is completely open with this, and just makes it, not necessarily like makes it cool to talk about, but just like says, okay, he's right. Like, we can sit there and open discussion and feel better. Because I know that the moment that I really started to like explore, I know this is going to sound hippie, but I'm from Northern California, so it makes sense. As soon as I started to like explore like within me as a person, I started really understanding like better ways to go about the things that I was going about. Because I think I mentioned this last week on the podcast, where I talked about quicksand, right? And talked about all that information overload. And within that, it was like you were just trying so hard because you didn't want anyone to look at you and say like, oh, he sucks. You want people to like look at you and be like, oh, he's the dude. Everyone wants that, right? And so for me, it was about, okay, I got to try harder and harder and harder and harder. And then once that happened, I sank deeper and deeper and deeper. So for me, when I was going through this process of like just being just a mental midget, you know, trying to identify how to best go about that and get and basically see the light on the end of the tunnel, it was about taking a step back and just and approaching, my training, life even in general, just smarter and not harder. And I know that's so easier said than done, even though I say it all the time. But it was really about like, okay, I can train 5 times a day and freaking blood, sweat, and tears and all of this stuff, and that's great. But as soon as I really start like attacking my true deficiencies, I'm not going to get anywhere. And I had to battle those like inner demons of like, okay, what is it that is like my deepest fear? Like what was it that I was so scared of going out on the mound and just being super fearful? Because just to give you guys like a brief like background, there's been not so much in 2011 when I had like my big struggles, I think I talked about last week, where I just failed and failed. That wasn't necessarily like a mental component. That was just like, I don't think I was pitching well. I didn't know how to pitch and I was young and so on and so forth. 2013, 2014, it was mental. Like I was good, but it was just, all of these like other little intricacies of the game of baseball and the mental aspect was holding me back. And then that's when it was truly about like, okay, I'm not necessarily like, really getting after it or unleashing the inner beast, as some people would say, because I was really like concerned about what other people were thinking, because I was going through this super mental yippee type moment, which I had never experienced, right? And that's another thing about the game of baseball is like, you never really prepare yourself for those moments. And then they happen and you just kind of have to deal with them the best you know how. And usually the best that you know how isn't really that great at all. And I'm speaking from personal experience. You maybe have a better way of going through it, but yeah. So I think that's why I tell people in 2014 when when I ended up getting released by Pittsburgh, it was like the biggest blessing in disguise, because I was able to like, okay, sit back, like just clear the mind. And again, I know that's easy, but it was like really like self-discovery, man. I was like, okay, why am I so scared every time I go out and pitch? Like, this is a game that I love. I still loved it, but it was like I was pitching more fearful. I was pitching more scared than I'd ever done in my life. Usually I'd go out there and I just love competing. I would love that freaking adrenaline rush you get right before you take the mound. And this was a moment in my life where I was literally like super scared to get out onto the mound. Like, I was starting in 2013, so I had 4 days in between. After I get done with my outing, I'd be like, oh man, like thank goodness I have 4 days in between my outing. Like I'm not going to get back up there again, like for 4 days. And then before I knew it, I was back up there and I was like, oh man. So then I knew like obviously something was wrong, right? Because I was looking forward to the days that I wasn't pitching more than I was looking forward to the days that I was pitching, because I was so fearful of what might happen when I did pitch, because I was in a terrible mental state of mind. So it was tough, obviously, and I really like, again, no one's the same as far as like how they get out of that rut. But for me, it was really like trying to discover, my love for like competing again, my love for pitching again. And I think I was just so, in those moments, I was so focused on what other people were thinking that I just completely lost sight of why I loved the game and why it was fun in the first place. It was like every time I would go out and pitch, it was basically like I was holding my breath until I was done. and then and then I could breathe again, and that's terrible. So, I mean, it's obviously terrible. So as soon as I got released, it was a really, really good opportunity for me to really sit back and really figure like, okay, this is still a game that I obviously love. I enjoy it. Let's get back to the things that about the game that I do enjoy. And this is kind of where we can dive into another rabbit hole of how I got on a better routine, and I was able to long toss more, and I was able to do more of the things that I guess were fun to me in a training or a throwing aspect, that I wasn't able to do before. And then I just really focused on the things that were fun about the game, and I got that joy back, and I got that like athleticism back. I started like taking ground balls again. I started like, shagging in the outfield during, BP, or taking fly balls or whatever it was. And that just kind of brought that joy back into my heart for the game of baseball, or for pitching, or whatever it was. And then once I had that, I knew like, okay, I'm going to give it another shot. And then ever since like that moment, I just kind of continuously told myself over and over again, like, you know, if I do get a second chance at this, then all of my energy and effort and emphasis and focus is only going to be on that I'm super fortunate that I get to play the game of baseball, right? Because, so hypothetically, say that once I got released, I was done and I was never going to give another shot, right? Like, that is a terrible taste in your mouth, leaving the game on that type of terms where you were fearing pitching, right? Like, that's not how I was raised to play the game. Like, that's not how I play the game today. It was a really like self-discovery of like, okay, first and foremost, what am I fearing? What is my biggest fear? Why am I scared out there? Like, was it a sense of like I wasn't working hard, so I was fearing that I wasn't prepared, or was it that I was focused so much on external acceptance, meaning I was, trying so hard to get other people to like me, or the coaches pleased with me, or whatever it is, which there's a mixture of everything in there. And then once I discovered that, it was about like, okay, how do I essentially like look forward to competition? How do I get back to like where I was as a kid? Because yeah, the game's changed, and yeah, it's different from when you're in little league or high school, but at the end of the day, it's still the game of baseball, right? Like, it still should be fun. It's a game. And I know it's super cliche to say, but that was something that I lost sight on. And it's super easy to lose sight on that too, because of, if you're someone listening to this that knows like affiliate baseball and knows professional baseball, and knowing the politics of it, there's always that component, and it gets watered down, and it doesn't get fun. It becomes a job. And that's something that, I kind of, I guess, lost myself in, and I needed to get out of that quick. So once I was released, I was able to kind of reestablish my roots in the game, and I was able to like find the joy in it. And I told myself right then and there, man, like, if I ever get a second chance, I'm going to be just super grateful. And then as soon as I kind of turn that mindset to the gratitude mindset, right, instead of like the fearing mindset, everything took off. And I'm not saying it's a direct correlation to getting signed, advancing 3 levels that next year, being in the fall league, going to big league camp. Like, I'm not saying that's all just like one little change in mindset, but for me, that's really where it clicked, in the sense of I spent basically the previous year, so 2014, always fearing pitching. Like, you get so much anxiety build up because, for reasons mentioned before. And then you switch that into the sense of like, I'm so joyful and I'm so fortunate to be able to like put this uniform on and play this game that I love, and actually get paid, even though it's not that much, to do it. Like, why would I be sad? So I know it sounds cliche and I know it's corny, but for me, it really held true in that sense of just switching that basic mindset to like, yo, I'm going to do everything that I can, right? I'm going to control all of the controllables, being that I'm going to work my tail off. I'm going to treat others with respect. I'm going to go about this the right way. And then, at the end of the day, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to have fun doing it. And if I fail, then I fail. Like, at least I went about it on my terms, and, I could live with that. At the end of the day, I can look in the mirror and say, you know what? I did that my way. I did that the best way I knew how. I treated others with respect. I played the game the right way. And I just failed, whatever. And just understanding that kind of concept and that dynamic for me, really, really helped. Because before, the mindset was like, oh man, like, I have to do this. Like, I have to go out and pitch. Like, oh man, what are people going to think of me? And what if I do bad? Like, all those what ifs that come into the game of baseball, right? Like, what if you fail? What if you don't throw one strike out of like 20 pitches? Because I've been there, and people look at you like you're an idiot, and fans, blah, blah, blah. Ugh. Well, hopefully you got something from that. I know I rambled a little bit there, but like I said, I'll include the consult option in the show notes. If you're someone that grinds through this just like a lot of people grind through this, hit me up. And if you can do me a favor, actually, if you know someone that struggles with this mental game, I guess, mental side. Share this episode with them. Share the link to my website landing page. I think, that's the whole goal, man. That's the whole vision. I just want to help people. I want to influence people, and I want to better equip people, for their journey. So I know how much of a tough road it is. As always, guys, much love. I'll link all of the stuff that I talked about in the show notes for you guys to head on over there and check that out. So until next time, I'm out. God bless. Enjoy. Oh, Happy New Year. Totally forgot to mention that. Sorry about it. Happy New Year. Love you.